everybody. Welcome to our podcast. We are going to be talking about Pisces season today. And before we get into it, we wanted to just do a little recap of Aquarius season, how it kind of unfolded for us. If you haven't had a chance to listen to that podcast episode, our very first one, actually, have a listen. And yeah, hi, Jenny.
Hi, Shadi. How are you?
I'm all right.
All
I'm all
right.
right. How are you?
Yeah. Yeah, we were just talking before. We're funny that way, weren't we? We were just getting into stuff and then we realized maybe we should record this. But yeah, we thought we would maybe share a little bit about Aquarius season, which was cool because Shadi was saying that there's actually a huge amount of Aquarius energy still going on.
So yeah, essentially, we are so when the sun enters Pisces on well, it's late in the evening here on the 18th, and it's the 19th for you and other parts of the world. The sun is there, but we still have Mercury, Mars, Venus, Pluto, they're all in there. Predominant Aquarius energy for sure. So an extension of basically a lot of the things we talked about last month are
Mhm.
still carrying. Um, just with a little difference that the sun in Pisces is going to be less sort of cerebral
Yeah.
energies, less cerebral energies, and more emotional energies. So we're shifting a little bit. So a lot of the things that we talked about are going to be less at the level of mind and now entering the level of body and spirit. And so obviously, this opens the door for a lot of healing and rejuvenating, regenerating in this particular month. Um,
Hmm.
so that really gets highlighted. For me, I felt like Aquarius season was intense is a way of putting it. I
I
felt
found
like
it intense.
did you
Yeah.
feel like I was just thrust in,
Yes.
all the things that I've been talking about for like the last bunch of months, and I felt
I
like I just
know.
got thrown into it. What was your experience like in the
Yeah, no, it
last?
was the same, like exactly like that. Like I think what you were saying, which is cool, is that Aquarius is actually associated with a lot of air tarot, air stuff. So it is that thinking, the music communicating our beliefs are, and then so we're thinking about, you know, how we're healing, what does work for us, what doesn't work for us. We're doing all those sort of things. What does feel nourishing? And then this is more like we're going to have to trust our emotional realm and your intuition and like really feeling into it. So it's going to be really interesting to see. But I found Aquarius season like almost I was forced to figure out what the foundational things are for me that are going to have the most impact. Like I felt itchy in my own skin. I felt like I don't know if you know what I mean by that, but like this what wasn't working. And it was a really around my thinking around what wasn't working. And now I'm like, okay, fine. So a lot of stuff's had to like either be adjusted or released or, like I
Yeah,
think I feel more clear about what the foundations and what the most important thing is, or what
yeah.
more, at this time, but and what my resource, how resourced I am. And I think this thing that kept coming up to me was what's enough. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I think everything you said and just that reality check that Aquarius brings that makes me so uncomfortable as a Cancer sun.
Yeah.
And you're a Cancer rising, and I think some of us with a lot of water energy, I find Aquarius can be really harsh. And I wrote it in my blog on Patreon a bit about how it makes me. It's a very future forward energy. So some of us, if we're not comfortable with change and with because it's not about daydreaming, it's very much a very reality
Logically. Yeah.
version of the future.
Yeah.
And so it's not like Pisces, where Pisces offers a little bit of softness in how we imagine possibilities. Aquarius is like, nope, we're going to move right into radical possibilities. Like,
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
not dilly-dally,
No
let's go.
sugarcoating.
Yeah, really, we're going to have to contend with this energy. I mean, I don't know if we're really in the age of Aquarius, but I definitely know with Pluto there for 20 years,
Hmm.
there's no way around avoiding this energy. at all. It's just going to be in the backdrop. So what does the future look like? Just all the themes of that we've been seeing around like collective liberation and humanitarianism. And, you know, it's not lost on me that we're recording this episode the day after major aggression assault by Israel onto Rafah, which is one of the last so-called safe zones in Gaza and in the Gaza Strip. And so, you know, it was just very surreal to be knowing that there was a big sort of American event like, you know, the Super Bowl happening. Such an Aquarius moment. Like it was so Pluto and Aquarius, like wake the fuck up. Our podcast is so much about personal healing and also connected to collective healing.
Yeah.
We heal so we can heal each other. We heal ourselves to be, you know, truer versions of ourselves, healed versions of ourselves, to offer that healed energy back into the world. So it's all tied together, and we can't not talk about something as uh, horrific as a genocide. While being on this podcast. And, you know, especially when we're talking about Aquarius season and Pisces season. And Pisces is like the compassionate healer, being in service to the collective. It's the ultimate symbol of care. I want to just highlight that this kind of push-pull right now between Aquarius and Pisces, because there are predominating Pisces energies as well, because Neptune's there. It's been there since 2011, and Saturn's been there since last year. So with the sun there, you know, there's this like Pisces and Aquarius moment happening. So it's like restriction, expansion, this push-pull around, this tension around feeling and and logic and what are we actually going to do, what are we doing with these feelings, we're going to heal, how are we actually going to heal, so where we want to be and what's keeping us from getting there, how are we going to get there. These two energies are really, they can have a good synergy together, right? Not just for our own personal lives, but out into the world. You know, what do we do with all this anger and grief and all the feelings we're having about what's happening? Not, you know, not just this genocide, but just in general with everything in the world, right? Like our own, just in our own backyards, what's going on in our own cities. State of homelessness is like, houselessness is really, really bad right now everywhere. People are having a hard time. Food insecurity is at an all-time high. So how are we taking action? And Aquarius is like, I'm here. And Pisces is like, I care.
I think what happens, well, we know this, is that it can feel very overwhelming, hopeless. What's our role? And I think if we tap into these energies around this is what we're being shown, if we're paying, so first of all, being a witness and paying attention is, and not looking away and not trying to twist the narrative so it makes sense and makes you comfortable, but sitting with what is true. This is true. This is what we're seeing. This is what's happening, whatever that situation might be. And then feeling into that, what's my role in this? What can I do? And I think it's that second part is what we're really needing.
Yeah.
And also remembering that it all matters, that our role will, everyone's role will be different. Everyone will have a different skill set, different capacity, different perspective, different connections, different community, and that it all matters. And I think that what's something we need to like sort of put down in this is this almost like outrage Olympics. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't do us any good to just, and the criticisms of people trying, you know, and trying and speaking as maybe not perfectly, maybe not completely, but trying, and looking at the issues and not looking at each other to like, you know, argue and fight and like criticize what's the best way to be radical and to be,
Yeah.
you know, in community. And I think it's that what's here for us, what's true, Aquarius season is showing us, we know, you know,
Yeah.
and what you said really stuck with me, the end of, you know, celebrity or the dying of celebrity. Holy moly, like right now, holy moly.
When I said that like a couple of years ago, and I was like, it's going to decline, and people were like, how? We never know how these energies are going to mirror things, and we're seeing almost the ridiculousness of celebrity at this
Yes.
point when you juxtapose it to what's going on, because both are on our screens, right? So now it's like celebrities on your screen, this horror, like a genocide is on your screen. You're like literally live stream. I think a lot of the message for this month on a personal level and as well on a collective level is like just being present
Yeah.
is really crucial, just to be present, as you said, with what the feelings are and what is,
Mhm.
because of the push pull of the restrictions of Saturn and the expansion of Jupiter. So much stretching here that's happening, like,
So
and
uncomfortable. So what do we feel, where do we feel ourselves pulled into numbing, ignoring, um, you know, hiding, pretending, things like that, which are totally valid feelings to have, but it is that stretching of staying with what is and being really present. And the tarot, associated with this season as well is very much of that ilk. So,
and talk about that a little. Like, I'm curious,
mhm. Oh,
saying to
you're
me,
gonna love it. You're gonna love it.
and you're
So
really okay.
Shadi and I have just gone through a moon hermit year in 2023, and Shadi has a birth card in tarot of the hermit. So she's familiar with this sort of discomfort and this thing, but I think a lot of it is to do, it's around navigating as well, sort of murky, unknown times. And the emotions and stuff that comes up with that can be really challenging because discomfort brings like out a lot of sort of nervous system needs and anxiety soothing needs and things like that. But otherwise, we can just get spiral, or downward spiral, whichever way you go with your spirals. What's really cool though is that the whole point of this energy is as much we're not meant to know everything. We're not meant to see it all and know it all, but we always have choice in what's available to us, and we always have a next step best choice, which is very hermit. And when you pair the two together, because numerologically the moon and the hermit are supports for each other, that's beautiful because you're walking the moonlit landscape, which is unknown and weird, and things don't look like they're supposed to look, and it's uncomfortable. We can't see very far, and then you've got this hermit energy, which is like, hold on, we're gonna be okay. I've got my lantern. I can see right here. I'm gonna just look for my next best step, my next best choice, and I'm gonna stay with myself and trust myself and my intuition to know which step, which path to take, which step to go, what's next. So the hermit has that sort of association with like if you're doing when people go on like religious journeys and they like a yeah, pilgrimage, and it's that like it's the journey, and it's not the place that they're going to necessarily that is the main thing. It's like the journey they take to get to that place. And that's what the hermit is. It's saying stay with ourselves in this journey, in this next, what's available to us in this moment right here. And that is the holy walk, is staying with ourselves and trusting each step of the way.
It's like
Mhm.
it's there that we're able to redefine and like what um our perception of things, redefine like our understanding of, for example, what like abundance is in our life, or
Yes.
what
What's enough? Yes.
of what actually is true, because and what is actually related to our expectations or internalized societal demands or whatever have you, because like in many ways we get trapped in a way of thinking about stuff, like, so even I think for myself, I'm like, how do I define success with this work, with my
Yeah.
business, whatever have you, right? And it's a perception that I have, right? And so where does one get the time to actually sit back, redefine those moments of stillness, the being present when you're constantly thinking so far ahead,
Yeah.
um, and you're just like, it's like there's no alignment there. You're not here. You're not actually gathering in your energy to go, let me, mind, body, spirit, like let me see what feels right. Because we constantly, I think that's another thing, like Pisces understanding the flow of things. And just because you and I were saying, you and I were both really, um, I mean, I can say I was an overachiever. I worked really hard all the time. Like max to the max, all with everything I did. And then, I'm 45 now, and there's a level of there's no other word for it. People say burnout, but it's like I think partly was burnout. Both you and I have some chronic health conditions that flare up and things, and I think it was a lot of those years of
Mhm.
um not caring for our bodies, or things were not in alignment. However, it's still hard to go to not feel like I'm not doing the most, but understanding that this is the capacity right now, and it's perfectly all right. That's Pisces, compassionate. It's all right where you're at, get out of that Aquarian headspace a little bit to
Mhm.
check in with where you are.
Yeah.
Because and Aquarius is cool that way too, because it wants you to be well. It wants a future that's well.
Mhm.
How do you make progress if you're unwell? But you got to bring those in together, because no energies in the zodiac, none of the things you and I talk about are just stand alone, like the perfect. You don't have the perfect card. You don't
No.
have fine. They all shadows. There's like good and bad to them all, right? And
Yeah.
so
And they
that's
influence each other as well. They influence each other. That's why it's so important if you are really interested in astrology to have a reading done, especially by someone like Shadi, who, because like that's something, yeah, but it makes such a big difference because you understand then my Aquarius is going to feel maybe very like the themes are there, but what my own personal Aquarius is going to feel very different to your personal Aquarius. And then we're working within a global Aquarius era of Aquarius. So it all matters, doesn't it? Um, yeah. And I love that you're mentioning about that connection, mental and inner connection, because there's also the Knight of Cups, which works really well with this season because the air Knight's air and Cups is water. So it's the quality of moving. So Knights are to do with movement. And what Knight of Cups is asking us in this season is like the quality of our movement being really intentional, which makes sense when you think about the moon and the Hermit in particular, that very intentional choice, movement, assessment, taking the next best step, trusting our judgment and our intuition. But there's also the Knight of Cups is asking us to move with our intuition.
mm,
So yeah, but move from, your heart, from your intuition, from your sort of inner landscape as well. So checking in with that is going to be really important. I love that you've got the Hermit as your card too, because that's a Virgo, a Virgo card.
I was asking. I was like, it sounds very Virgo-esque as you were.
Yes.
But Virgo, interestingly, is it's the polarity of Virgo and Pisces. Virgo opposes Pisces, and
Well,
they're
amazing.
yeah, they're both actually healing. They're healing signs. They're in healing. Both of them love to be in healing service.
Mhm.
So I think like there's that um level of they work really well together. So again, going back into that um the healing uh, the healing potential of this month, this zodiac month is pretty huge. And I think the thing about it is, again, with all that Aquarian um energy there is a reminder, ruled by Saturn, there's a reminder of like what are we committing to with our healing. And how, in what ways are we buckling down and making it an actual thing, because Pisces, the sun entering Pisces, and Pisces being ruled by Jupiter, traditional ruler, of course. We look at where Jupiter is currently in the sky, and it's in Taurus. So again, I think there's a lot of themes around um, so not just committing, but what are we committing to? Like what's tangibly going to happen? It's really wonderful to talk about healing in an abstract way,
Yeah.
but Jupiter in Taurus is like, how is this going to be tangible? Like, what steps are we taking? What's the foundation going to look like? And there's a lot of themes around stability, security, and safety coming up as we see in the world. Not just with like you know, this genocide, there's various genocides going on. And like just literal safety of people's bodies being safe, very Taurus.
Mhm.
Um, and you know, and also just like everywhere, like in terms of security, finances, like we're living in a, it's that Uranus and Taurus with Jupiter there, just really lighting things up for us around those themes. So this month may feel a bit like um us kind of pondering those things. And again, remembering, as you said, like that idea of being present, being in that hermit space to say, this feels really fucking uncomfortable.
Yeah, staying
I'm
with the discomfort. Uh-huh.
going to take rash action, right? Because that's when we get into trouble. And that's one of the things I'm always working with clients, and I'm sure you do too, is this idea that if we know the energies and what's being activated, then we're better able to make favorable decisions. Not saying you're going to all of a sudden come into money or things are going to be good, but for example, when you go to the grocery store, like just to make this very tangible, but
Mhm.
like, so I'm like a very impulsive shopper. I also think that's my ADHD as well, but like I'll go in, oh, I'm going to make this recipe. As I'm walking down the aisles, like something pops into my head and I start grabbing all this shit that will fridge and not get used, waste of food, and groceries are no joke right now with how much they cost. So just being deliberate. Saturn's like restriction, but it's also about being deliberate. It's about like committing to the long haul. So it's how we're perceiving it. How am I committing to my well-being in the long run? How am I committing, like, and so that theme of, sorry to go on this tangent, but it's about
Uh,
10, it's Taurus reminding us what are you actually doing? Like what's happening?
Yeah, and it's interesting too because the association for Jupiter is the Wheel of Fortune, which is also, and if it's in Taurus, this is cool because the Wheel of Fortune for me is about staying centered and like again, knowing that there's stuff going on behind the scenes that you don't necessarily need to know. Um, but what are your grounding practices? And I think Taurus is very much also asking us to get pretty grounded. Even though Wheel of Fortune is linked to like a fire sort of energy, there's like that. I always love the analogy of like instead of being whipped around the outside of the wheel, what practices do we need to stay very centered in the middle? And that is, like you said, that Saturn sort of, if we reframe Saturn as being around diligence and um, being deliberate and being very like maybe cautious, but for a purpose around expending energy, expending time, expending money, like what kind of our resources and really getting clear on what we need. And so therefore what resources are available to us. And therefore, how am I going to keep myself really grounded in that so I'm not getting whipped around the outside of it all?
Oh, that's really brilliant. I'm always like, Wheel of Fortune, what are you all about?
I know that's a lesson from, so I did a lot of learning with Lindsay Mack, and that's one of the things cards that really stuck with me was her interpretation of Wheel of Fortune, because sometimes it's about like good luck and stuff like that, but it's not. It's about how you stay centered in your own life so that it's almost like not creating your own luck, but that kind of staying with yourself. You know what I mean? Like it's rather than being, yeah, whipped around. I always love that analogy. She talks about that. And instead of going on the outside of the wheel, it's like get yourself right back to that center. And what are those practices for you? Hmm.
It's because like I think a lot of times in the new age way of talking about like money healing and just healing in general, there's
Yeah.
this of like simplification of things. And I think that um we can't do that because then we actually miss out on the magic of of possibilities that sometimes require us to restrict. And I think again, perhaps because I'm a Saturnian and I'm biased, like you know that moon in Capricorn, but I like I understand the importance of restriction. I really do, and because I think there's possibilities there that are there's a potential for possibilities
Mhm.
within restriction, within the confines, that sometimes expansion is too much. So you know this idea that money comes and goes and money flows, and yes, it's true, money does come and go, And sometimes money's not coming. And so that's okay. It doesn't mean that it's not gonna, but you also need to have some awareness and diligence around where things are at. So I'm just using money as an example because, again, the things of Taurus. But I think that this can relate to a lot of other things. I think that the one of the messages of this month for me, again, looking at all the different planetary connections and aspects, it's really about baby steps. I'm not a very active person, and again, Taurus reminding me to get into my body, the very importance of those of us who are more cerebral or more spiritual, like gotta get back here into the body. And it was like, just go for a walk. Go for a walk for 15 minutes. Go for a walk. You don't have to pack it up and go to the gym. You don't have to. What are these baby steps that we do, right?
Yeah, keep it simple.
And so, what does baby steps look like for other people, for
Yeah.
yours? This month, remembering that healing is incremental, remembering that, there is a Virgo new moon, full moon, sorry, that's going to be coming up on February 24th, and opposing that sun in Pisces, and reminding us that healing lies in the details. Again, you said it's connected to Hermit, but I don't know how that ties in, but there is this idea that the details actually matter, the bigger
Mhm.
picture too, but so do those everyday little things.
Yeah, our everyday things. Like I always talk about this. This is one of my big sort of pillars of my coaching work is working with folks around um reframing our everyday. I love habit work. So I've always done a bit of habit work with, and that sort of one of the things I do with a lot of folks around that with the tarot information that we have around the person's sort of tarot links. But it's about what are our everyday things that we do, because the amount of time, the percentage of time we spend in our life is on our everyday routines and habits. And that is where there's real potential for shifts and pivots and change and magic. Because if you're approaching them in a slightly different way, if you're questioning them, if you're looking at them for how they benefit you or don't benefit you, if you're looking at where there can be some small changes, people dismiss that because it sounds so simple. But one of my favorite sayings, and I use it in my classroom as well when I was a teacher, was like, as the kiss, keep it simple, sweetheart.
uh, it's amazing. I will say how much my attitude and my energy has shifted since I started walking. Again, we cannot undermine like those the baby steps, as you said. Like, um, it's those things that then lead to, people be like, I'm gonna train for a marathon. Well, like that's great. And also, when I say people, that's myself, because I did try to do that one time and I can't even run. So I mean, God, I don't know what I was thinking, but But it's like, I'm all in, and then it falls apart, and I'm just like, shoddy, the baby steps, just get it in there. And I think that is a big thing this month. There is such a big healing theme during Pisces. There is a Pisces new moon on March 10th, and I think that is a great, because it's just like almost a week before the sun enters Aries. And I think Aries season is going to be dynamic. We have a lunar eclipse that month, in that season. And so it's going to be fast moving. That's how I feel. And
Use this time. Use this time.
this season is really important. And it's been a whole last 4 months of like just um like just questioning so much around our world. These times are feeling they're weighing on us, and we want to make sure we're taking care, because if we do also want to show up for each other, that we can't if we're not well. Even if our motivation is to give back to others, and again, I'm speaking to myself, but it's like, how am I taking care of myself and not
Yeah,
burning at both ends? How is my household okay? How am I okay? And then how is everyone else okay? We can't
mm,
do it without that. And that's a big message this month as well, to the activists, to the healers, everyone who's giving so much of themselves out there. It's like, this is the month to sit with that discomfort, because a lot of us want to run away from that discomfort by doing outward things and and we have to come home, as you always remind me.
Me too.
Home.
And I just realized your baby steps comment is the hermit. That's just just like it's like one step pause, make a choice. And I think as well to remind ourselves when we slow everything down, when we're intentional with what we're doing, when we're keeping ourselves in the center of the wheel, when we're like that's where we will, and if we take that time and opportunity to do that, is where we'll know deeply how resourced we are. And I'm not saying like there is a real lack in a lot of things. We know the systems at play are designed to make us feel and actually experience lack and not enoughness and all that sort of thing, so that we're constantly more. But one of the things we can divest from that is being very intentional about awareness of how resourced we are already. And that is things like having access to going for a walk, or instead of like training and needing every single, like the newest, kit to kit yourself out with to go to become a marathon runner, or do we just go for a 15-minute walk and get like the benefit from it? And I think that is when we know how resourced we are, when we start to see that a bit more, we are much more able to help outwardly as well, and to contribute more to our communities, to our, like, and just as a simple thing, right? But I'm very proud of my son for this as well. But we started litter picking, right, in our neighborhood. And this seems silly, but it's
Oh,
like I know, but in the bigger scheme, but I think he's 9, he's seeing, why do people litter? What happens with the litter? Where does the litter go? Why don't more people do this? And like there's a couple people in our neighborhood, quite a few, that do it. And so there's become a network of this support, and like, oh, I've got spare bags. Do you need more bags? Like it's just, for him, it's opening up activism in an active way, like community contribution in an active way. And it's because we're recognizing we've got the time to do it. We're resourced with time in that area. So what are we going to do with that? We've got the bags, we've got the picky things, we can afford to do that. Like, what, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like
sure.
how, when you're feeling that resource, you automatically start looking at most people start looking at how can we apply this outwardly if we have enough.
Or at least if you're not thinking about that, this would be a great month to think about
Think
that.
about that.
There's so much also this season about taking care of each other. And it doesn't have to be activism. Not everyone is comfortable with that. And I get that. It's not for everybody. But there's like, are you checking in on the elders in your neighborhood, or like things like that?
Yeah,
Or people in your life. Are you, you know, um,
absolutely.
whatever. Like, you know what
Yeah,
I mean?
yeah.
Auntie, ever, because we've also, those are all those things, all again incremental baby steps. We all contribute in whatever ways we can, and Pisces season is about that. How are we in service in a way that there's always a way that's possible. Pisces season for sure also helps us find the community too, because it's this thing when you're doing your inner work and when you're also in service, you start to find others that are similar and aligned in their values, which again is very Aquarius. So it's really a time, I think, of like, I know it's been hard and discombobulating for a lot of my clients, and um around like, who are the people that I'm connecting with? Like, what's a lot of deep questions around people you love and care about, and how do you hold compassion where your values don't align, or do you part ways, or what do you have these tough conversations? But what I know is this push pull that we began this whole episode with,
Yeah.
this is with us. It's going to be with us for a long time, not just this season. So this is the season though to sit with that discomfort, at least acknowledge it if we're not going to do anything about it, but acknowledging it is pretty big, and just saying,
Huge.
I'm not sure about my community of people. Even saying that out loud is really big, right? Or I want to be more in service. How can I be? Like, just even generally planting that seed this month, and you will
Mhm.
kind of unfold for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, and if you like, there's clues too, right? So if you're asking that question and aren't sure where to look, your birth chart's probably a pretty good like place to start. And I know like using tarot as an indicator and using your birth card and things associated with that is a really good way to sort of find the breadcrumbs if you're feeling really lost around what is it for me to do and how I'm going to do it. Then there are tools, like sort of more intuitive tools to use to help folks with that as well, isn't there?
Amazing. There's so much to talk about this month, but I
And
will say, folks listening and tuning in, that you know, I on my Patreon I do like a forecast of the month with specifics on planetary connections and like kind of what those mean. I have a little calendar. So if you're interested in knowing what's coming ahead, you can also check it out there. I think here we like to open it up to more just I think it's nice to have a general conversation without getting into the details, you
yes.
know, and
Yeah,
just
and they are very personal, and obviously we'll speak from our experience with our own, you know, astro and tarot stuffs, and we'll speak to the sort of global energies as well. But obviously everybody will have their own, will fit within, you'll be feeling them, but you'll be feeling them, yeah, to different like extents and different intensities, and depending on what your stuff is, you know.
And I think for the both of us, our day-to-day is immersed in the energies, right? Like we are have awareness of what's going on out there, um, or we try to tap in and connect, right? Like I think for you as well with the tarot, like for me, if I'm feeling sort of off, I take comfort in going to the stars and going, what the
Yes.
heck is going on?
Yeah.
And
What's going on? What the fuck?
And what's really wild is I will repeat this over and over again, but the planets are not doing anything to us, but there is wisdom in what they're mirroring to us specifically. And so when we go there, it's almost like tarot. It's like it's a tool that
Yeah.
you use to connect with higher consciousness. And you go, oh, thank you. And for me, it's the language of planets. And for Jenny, you know, and for you, it's the cards. And I know you really go like your connection to those cards is next level. Like I just, it's amazing. Um, I you share with me, it's wild. Man, so we both use them in a daily, day-to-day way.
And all that to say as well that we do this on a daily basis because it's partly our purpose is, and it's partly our work, and it's partly our jobs and everything else, and we still find it really challenging.
I know. It's the
So
answer. We don't go through the things.
yeah,
Through
so we're in it too, is what we're trying to say. You know, we might have a bit more understanding of maybe the stuff, but it doesn't make it any less uh uncomfortable to do our own work in it, you know. So we're on the paths with you.
on the path, trying to do the homecoming thing every day.
Every day, always.
I guess we will reconnect with everybody. We'll be back here for Aries season. That'll be wild. And also just wishing everybody, you know, a very healing and uh, reviving Pisces season.
hmm And we just hope as well everyone can find their wee bit of community or something in some way, shape, or form, and you know, compassionate community the next little bit too, because it sounds like we're gonna maybe need it in Aries season.
It will be a roller coaster of sorts. And as always, if folks continue to, you know, call your reps and in whatever ways you can show up to call, demand a ceasefire and our collective voices, they really do matter. I feel like they've been shifting things. I think we're making a difference collectively in the little baby steps way that we're all contributing. So yeah.
Absolutely. I'm with you on that one for sure. And we will put any important dates and reminders and sort of things to consider in the show notes. So if you want to have a look there for some of the things we've been speaking about. And of course, we would love it if you would follow us on whatever platform you're listening and watching and or interact in any way that you would like. So we know how you're, you know, feeling about some of the things that have come up. And yeah, we will see you next season.
Then take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye.